everybody is familiar with the story of Adam and Eve. They're
Okay, let's see.
created in the Garden of Eden, and there's a particular tree in the Garden of Eden called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that God tells them not to eat of. He says you can eat of any tree, but if you eat of that particular tree, then in the day that you eat of it, you will die. Whatever that means. Here are some of the objections. The first thing is to say that it seems like if the serpent is lying and is evil and is the devil, then Eve is somehow deceived here. She's deceived by a half-truth. She's fooled into eating the fruit. And when she does so, not only is she punished for something which she was fooled into doing, but now her descendants are also punished for a crime that they did not commit, but rather one of their ancestors committed, and arguably didn't do so knowingly. Not only that, but because she's eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, this implies that before she ate of the tree, she didn't have a knowledge of good and evil. So if she's being punished for doing something evil and bad, then it seems incongruous that she would be punished for doing something evil and bad before she had a knowledge of what was evil and bad, because she hadn't eaten of the fruit yet. So again, it seems unfair to punish her for doing something that she can't have known was bad. The third question I would raise is why the serpent is there in the first place. If the serpent is this evil creature that's sort of crawling around Eden, why is the serpent in paradise in the first place? Why would God place him there? Why would God allow the serpent to be there? Fourthly, it's unclear what exactly is inaugurated by this event. We're told that original sin enters the world in this event. However, there must have already been something like a proneness to sinning with Adam and Eve, because at the very first opportunity they were given, they fell for it. And it can't be that sin entered the world through sin. That doesn't make any sense. You have to sin to bring it about. So there was already sin and already a propensity to sin. There was already evil because the serpent's in the garden. And it's implied that there was already suffering in the Garden of Eden because God punishes Eve by greatly increasing her pains in childbirth. So it's unclear to me, when they eat of the tree, what exactly it is that enters the world. Maybe mortality. We can talk about that. So there's sort of a moral objection here, that there's this crime that's committed unknowingly, without knowledge of good and evil, fooled into doing so by the serpent, and then descendants are punished for the crime that they didn't commit. The other sort of side of this objection is to say, this is all assuming that actually, the serpent is evil and did tempt Eve.
Alright, what is the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the garden? Midst means central focus. What is established, firm, grounded, to be or become set in place. Mankind is the whole tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the fruit mankind bears by the spirit of mankind, commonly known as the heart of mankind, their awareness, consciousness, the decision-making, freedom of thought, and freedom of expression, will either produce good fruit or evil fruit, and the seed within the fruit is one's soul, light or darkness that must die to the fruit of a flesh, and the hope of new life. The Bible mentions truth of knowledge of good and evil. Second, the Hebrew reference and meaning. Knowledge of good and evil, that is, laying with, participating in, becoming part of good and evil. Of course, Adam and Eve knew about good and evil before they sinned. They knew rebellion against oneself and against God is evil.